Hello everybody, I'm Evan Kamikow and welcome to the Season 11 premiere of The Toss-Up. Each week, join myself and an expert line panel dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs here in Bloomington to the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we have a great show for you coming up on The Toss-Up. Well, it's quite nice to be back sitting here in Beckley Studio for the Season 11 premiere of The Toss-Up. As always, I'm your host, Evan Kamikow, and this week we are talking about one of the new program powerhouses in Bloomington and the Big Ten, your Indiana Hoosier football team. Head coach Tom Allen's squad took a giant step forward as a program last season, finishing with a 6-1 record despite losing in a bowl to Ole Miss in the Outback Bowl. With the return of starting quarterback Michael Penix Jr. coming off a torn ACL last season against Maryland, expectations for the Hoosiers were sky high. But reality had other plans. Indiana started their 2021 campaign with a blowout loss in Iowa against the Hawkeyes 34-6. Coming up later in the show, our IUSTV Sports football beat reporter Ryan Scott will break down the rest of IU's schedule. However, joining me on the panel for the show to discuss the Iowa game and more is our IUSTV Sports football beat reporters, Will Trubshaw and Anthony McClain. Will, Anthony, welcome back to the Toss-Up. Glad to see both of you.
Great to be back, man. Great way to start off the year.
Oh, yeah, great to see everybody, and it's just great to be back.
And unfortunately, IU football, they didn't start out the year so great. Will, I'll start with you. What were your reactions going into the Iowa game? What were your thoughts right before that game kicked off?
Well, you know, I thought they had as good a chance as any IU team has going into Iowa City in the last few years. I mean, you liked, obviously, Penix being back. You know, you like all the grad transfers on offense and defense who've come in, and then obviously Ty Freifogel, Peyton Hendershot coming back. I mean, you kind of had a feeling that it could be a good matchup, and I thought it would be a close game. I didn't think necessarily that Indiana would win, because it's hard to go into Kinnick Stadium and to win. But I don't know that I was expecting what we saw on Saturday.
And we'll break down what we saw in just a moment. Anthony, what were your pregame reactions?
I mean, honestly, I was just really, hyped up for the season. I think it was the first time that anybody here on the campus has had expectations for the football team. And the fact that, those expectations were so high and just to see what happened, is just, really unfortunate. But I still think that those expectations are there. And the hype is still there.
I would completely agree with you. I was super amped up. I was so excited for the game. And, now I want to ask about kind of the game. Where did you notice what went wrong for IU? When did you notice they were in a little over their head at Iowa?
I'll be honest, it kind of seemed like that very first scoring play was 4 plays into the game, and Iowa breaks off a 56-yard run for the score and for the touchdown. I mean, it was just a complete breakdown defensively for Indiana. They didn't set the edge on the outside, and Goodson for Iowa just turned the corner and kind of let loose. And that felt kind of uncharacteristic of that Indiana defense. And then, the first possession for Indiana, Michael Penix goes and throws a pick six. And it wasn't his fault, but the first 2 possessions of the game, and Indiana's down 14-0, and I mean, it's not even 5 minutes into the game. So I think right there you kind of knew this is trouble. But I mean, they didn't do themselves many favors the rest of the way either.
Yeah. Anthony, what about you? When did you notice IU was in trouble?
Honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. At least regarding the first half, regarding the second half, at least, that's whenever I really knew that we were in huge trouble. Is like even in the second half, we only held them to 3 points for the rest of the game. But just the fact that we weren't able offensively to get anything going is whenever I really started to dwindle like the hope in me.
Yeah.
So, big time.
We'll get to the offense literally with my next question, but I would agree. I think once Penix really threw that second interception, and, at one point it was 21-6. We were winning in the third quarter, and then kind of everything really fell apart. I think that's when I noticed that it was kind of a lost game, but, what are you going to do? You're in Iowa, one of the most hostile college football environments. So, Anthony, we'll stay with you because you brought up the offense. What did you notice went wrong with the offense?
Obviously, the drops. The drops are just what really, I think, set IU so low at the beginning is because that first drop was an interception. Well, it was basically a tip, not catching the ball. So just seeing some discipline from our wide receivers is definitely going to help, going into this Idaho game. And then also just I felt like our run game was just non-existent. We weren't really able to play our game. And whenever you can't run the ball, you can't control the clock. And when you can't control the clock, you don't control the game. And so on and so forth. So definitely, I'd say running the ball, and we gotta catch our balls.
I'll take the running game aspect a step further. Indiana had 5 different players rush, including Michael Penix, and they rushed for a total of 77 yards. That's just not going to cut it in a Big Ten game, especially against Iowa, on the road in Iowa. The lead rusher was, of course, Stephen Carr, but he only picked up 62 yards on 19 carries. That's just not going to cut it. You need the run game to establish the passing game, keep that Iowa defense, that sharp Iowa defense on its toes, because we saw the secondary. When they expected the pass was coming, they were all over Michael Penix's passes. So you got to use the run game to set that up. And I expect that to be a little better against Iowa, but it was just, it was non-existent during the Iowa game, and Tom Allen said as much too.
Yeah, and to your point, when you don't have Samson James, who transferred to Purdue right before the season, definitely hurts your running game because he was RB1 into the summer, and really he was supposed to be RB1 into the fall. And when he made the announcement to transfer, that just kind of fell apart, and you saw that IU's running game clearly wasn't anywhere near where it was last season. And also, I think there's a little issue with Penix. He wasn't fully healthy. He was playing a little scared. There were times when he was in the pocket in the second half, could have made something happen, could have moved. Chose not to. I didn't disagree with his decision to not extend the play, but I think that at times you have to, as a Division I quarterback in an environment like Iowa, you needed to create something, and I think he was just playing a little too scared this week.
I think I will say that's probably just a little bit.
I couldn't agree more.
Hasn't played
Could not agree
since last year with that torn ACL. First time really taking true contact. He wasn't taking hits in practice the way he was in this Iowa game. I think too. That first interception, it wasn't his fault. DJ Matthews just slipped and lost it over his hands. But, that can get in a quarterback's head, especially when you're coming back from injury. You feel you got all this weight on your shoulders. You feel like you got to be perfect. And one little mistake kind of, I think, sent the trajectory for the rest of the game downhill.
Yeah, Anthony, I want to switch away from offense, talk a little bit about the defense. What did you see of the defense? What did you like from the defense, from their performance, especially the second half, I would say? Yeah,
definitely. If I'm going to compliment the defense, I'm definitely going to talk about the second half, because the first half, I don't think any of us know what that was. But, definitely in the second half, I love how, they made a lot more adjustments. And to, answering the running game, the running game definitely dwindled a little bit more. Because, whenever that first drive came out and they just literally were able to just run it down our throats and have that 30, 40-yard touchdown on us, that's just inexcusable. So I really liked how we were able to stop the run. And also, it just seemed like we were being a little bit more physical. I feel like we just got punched in the mouth, in that first half. And, that's happened to me whenever I used to play football. We would come out, get punched in the mouth in the first half, and then the second half, you just come out a lot better because, you knock that rust off, like Will said.
Will?
Yeah, I think I was honestly pretty impressed with the defensive play, especially in the second half. Like Anthony said, the first half wasn't a lot to write home about, but at the same time, 2 of those scores were not their fault. It was the 2 pick sixes from Penix. So really, this game was much closer when you factor in just what the defense did.
Yeah.
I was really impressed too with Ryder Anderson. I thought he played extremely well.
Yeah.
Picked up a sack and kind of set the tone for the defense, especially in the third and fourth quarters.
Right. So, Will, we'll kind of move into this weekend. New game. You get to, wash that one out of your mind. What are your predictions for IU Idaho this weekend in Bloomington?
I think IU's going to come out angry. I think they're going to come out aggressive. I think they're going to put a hurting on Idaho, and they kind of need to. You can't have a lackluster game or a game where you only win by 1 score to Idaho. This is a team you got to take care of, and I believe they will.
Anthony?
Yeah. Like I said, couldn't have said it better myself. This is just a game that, you're definitely just going to have to see where you're at. It's like, how do you respond to a loss like that?
Yeah.
And that's really going to set, going to set the path for how the rest of the season is really going to go. Because if IU comes out flat again, then, people are going to start, asking, like, if that's going to be a trend throughout the season. Is there disciplinary problems? Like, what's going on? So we definitely need to just come out there against Idaho and, like Will said, just put the hurting on them.
I'd agree. You have such a long season ahead of you. You haven't even started Big Ten play yet, really. You played Iowa. Yes, they're the Big Ten West. But then you get Idaho, Cincinnati, who's a top 10 program right now, and then Ohio State in a couple weeks. So you really need to kind of figure it out before that Big Ten East play really gets going. So, all right, guys, stick around. Coming up after the break, Ryan Scott joins us in studio to take a look through the rest of IU football's schedule. Then join myself, Will, and Anthony making some Week 2 college football predictions. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now joining the show to break down the rest of IU football season schedule is our very own IUSTV sports football reporter, Ryan Scott. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Evan. There's still plenty of season left for IU football after starting off 0-1, as the Hoosiers will look to get back on track this Saturday night against Idaho University. Kickoff is set for 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Memorial Stadium, which will be the first home game with Hoosier fans in attendance in over 650 days. Next weekend marks the first sellout crowd in 5 years, as more than 52,000 IU fans will be packed inside to watch the visiting Cincinnati Bearcats take on the Indiana Hoosiers. It is expected not only to be one of the largest crowds in IU athletics history, but will also likely feature 2 of the top 25 ranked teams in all of college football. The Hoosiers will also be wearing retro-inspired uniforms this September 18th home game, which kicks off at noon. Following these back-to-back home games, IU football will then be on the road at Western Kentucky University on September 25th, and then again the following weekend at top-ranked Penn State to start the month of October. Be sure to follow along with IUSTV Sports, Will Trubshaw, Noah Harrison, and myself for the latest IU football updates. Evan, back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. We're back in studio with IUSTV Sports football beat reporters Will Trubshaw and Anthony McClain. And instead of talking more IU football, let's take a look at some of the best games of the week and make our own predictions. Best record wins something to be cited, maybe. Maybe we'll do something last episode of the season on the toss-up. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, first game, Anthony, we'll start with you. We'll go a little rapid fire. Iowa versus Iowa State, a great matchup of 2 top 10 teams.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go with the experience here from last week, and I'm going to say Iowa. Iowa's defense is just lights out, and I just really like what I've seen from their run game as well. And also their coach has just got them real fired up and disciplined, so I'm definitely going to go with Iowa.
Oh, man. I'm probably going to have to go with Iowa, too. It's going to be tough, on the road in Ames against Iowa State. They've got, Brock Purdy, Breece Hall. But that Iowa defense, man, I mean, they're the real deal. They are really, really good.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iowa State. I'll play devil's advocate on this one. Like you said, Brock Purdy is going to be good. They've played in big game scenarios. They are not scared of a big game. They won the Fiesta Bowl last year. So I'm going to take them. And we'll stay with you, Michigan and Washington.
Ooh, man, a couple old powerhouses. With that one, I feel like I'm a little more inclined to go with Michigan, for all the ups and downs that Coach Harbaugh has had there and stuff. I think this is a win they pull out. It's one of those kind of feel-good wins for them, too, against a Washington team that I almost kind of like the West Coast version of Michigan teams. They're kind of not at the standard that they used to be, but they always kind of get put up there.
Yeah, I'm going to also have to go with Michigan as well. Not only the fact that I think the Big Ten is just a harder conference in general, so I just think the football over at the Big Ten is just a little bit more intense. Also, Washington struggled a little bit, didn't really beat the team that they faced last week as much as they probably should have, and Michigan blew out their team like 41-9, something around there. I know they scored at least 40 points. So just from the basis of that and just how high-powered Michigan's offense looks, I'm going to go with Michigan.
Yeah, I'll take Michigan, too. I think they're serious threats this year in the Big Ten East. I think that Jim Harbaugh, if any year he's going to have, John Harbaugh, if he's going to have any good year, it's going to be this one because this is a make-or-break year. Anthony, I'll stay with you. Rutgers and Syracuse. Who's your pick there?
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with Syracuse. Rutgers last year came in 11th out of 14 teams in the Big Ten on the run game defense. And also the majority of the points that Syracuse scored last week was in the run game, even one of them scored by their quarterback. So if their quarterback is mobile, and then they're also going to have to take into account their good running backs, it's going to be really easy for Syracuse to control the game, and it's going to be really hard for Rutgers to try and find their footing and make sure that Syracuse doesn't get something going really early.
Will?
I am going to go with Rutgers here. I like what Greg Schiano's doing already in his second year back at the helm. You know, he's got the culture. He's got the fans believing. I think they're going to take down their East Coast rival Syracuse here.
Yeah, I'm going to take Rutgers, too. I feel like Syracuse has been very hit or miss lately with football. They've had a big game, and then they've lost a big game. So give me Rutgers on this one. Next one, Oregon, Ohio State. Great matchup, Will.
Buckeyes. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country. You know, I like Oregon. They're the top 15. You know, they're a really good team themselves. But I mean, I don't know, this Ohio State team. That second half they had, they got it rolling, and it was just a demolition derby.
Yeah, I'm also going to say Ohio State, not only just because of their really, really elite just wide receiver group, just also that defensive line, you know, the pass rush is just there. And whenever the pass rush is there and you can get after the quarterback and you can disrupt that offense, you know, it's going to be really hard for the quarterback to be able to get his reads off. And it's going to just be really hard for him to get out of the pocket, too, away from those really good defensive ends that Ohio State has.
Yeah, I'll take Ohio State, too. C.J. Stroud looked great in that second half, and I think he's only going to build off of it this week. One final question to you guys before we wrap up. Anthony, I'll start with you. What is your IU season bowl prediction?
My IU season bold prediction is that we get the Rose Bowl.
Love
Rose
the
Bowl.
confidence.
I love it. I'm not feeling that bold. I'm thinking this is about, realistically, probably a 9-3 team. Maybe borderline New Year's Six Bowl, maybe Gator Bowl, maybe Citrus Bowl, something like that. I think they have the potential to maybe end up in Florida once again. Good team. I'm still not convinced, especially after the Iowa game, if they can compete with Ohio State and Iowa for those premier bowls.
At first, I was going to one-up you. I was going to go college football championship because why not? They're going to win the Natty this year. No, I'm just kidding. If I have to make a real prediction, I'm going to say it's going to be the Music City Bowl in Nashville. We've been in Florida IU has been in Florida the last 2 years. They have not been to Nashville, so give me Nashville. Will, Anthony, thank you so much for joining the show, and that's going to do it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on our Instagram page at IUSTV Sports and Twitter at IUSTV Sports for live tweets and updates from our beat reporters. We are always looking for ways to improve the show, so feel free to give any suggestions and ask any questions you might have via social media. Shout out to the amazing crew behind the scenes in Beckley Studio for everything they do. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next week.